George Russell was not just fighting for pole in Austria. He was fighting the one accusation that can turn speed into suspicion because Verstappen crashed at turn 9. Yellow flags appeared. Antonelli backed out. Ferrari thought Leclerc had pole, and then Russell crossed the line fastest. 1 minute, 6.113 seconds. A lap that should have been a Mercedes celebration instantly became a paddock-wide investigation. Russell says he lifted. Mercedes says he lost time. The stewards allowed the lap to stand. But here's the problem. If the data shows even one moment where Russell carried too much speed through the yellow flag zone, then this is not just a controversial pole. It is a warning sign for the entire Mercedes championship fight because one Mercedes driver chose caution. The other chose the gray area, and only one of them got rewarded. That is why this moment is so dangerous. It exposes Russell's instinct under pressure, Antonelli's sacrifice, Ferrari's frustration, Red Bull's opportunity, and a rule that may have just shown every driver how to survive a yellow flag without giving up the prize. The official decision saved Russell's pole, but it may not save Mercedes from what comes next. The first layer of this controversy is not the lap time. It is the timing, because Russell did not complete that pole lap in a calm, ordinary qualifying session where everyone had a clean shot and the fastest driver simply won. He completed it in the final seconds, when the Red Bull ring had already become a pressure cooker, when Ferrari thought the front row was opening, when Mercedes needed a statement, and when Max Verstappen's crash suddenly turned the final sector into the most disputed stretch of track in Austria. That is what makes this story feel so dangerous. The moment Verstappen lost control at turn 9, the session changed instantly. 1 second, drivers were chasing the limit. The next, they were entering a zone where danger mattered more than lap time. Yellow flags appeared, and with them came the question that still hangs over Russell's pole. Did he react enough? Not did he react a little. Not did he say he lifted. Not did Mercedes defend him. Did he do enough for a lap that became pole position to feel clean? That is the part Mercedes cannot escape, because Formula One is not judged only by the official timing screen. It is judged by what people believe they saw, and what people saw in Austria was almost impossible to ignore. Verstappen crashed. Antonelli backed out. Russell finished the lap. Russell went fastest. Those 4 facts created the entire storm. And the reason the debate became so loud is simple. Kimi Antonelli was in the same team, in the same fight, under the same pressure, and he made the opposite decision. He saw the yellow flag and abandoned the lap, no calculation, no attempt to save it, no attempt to thread the needle. He chose safety, certainty, and no risk of a deleted time. That choice cost him. Russell chose differently. He did not completely abandon the lap. He lifted, according to his own explanation. He reduced speed, according to the steward's final view. He kept the car moving, kept the lap alive, and crossed the line with a time of 1 minute, 6.113 seconds. Pole position. That is where the controversy becomes more than a rule debate. It becomes a question of instinct. Because in Formula One, the greatest drivers are not just fast, they are decisive. They make choices at impossible speed with incomplete information under pressure that most people will never understand. But yellow flags are supposed to change that calculation. When a yellow flag appears, the message is not, find the smallest possible time loss. The message is danger ahead. Slow down. Be prepared. Respect the situation. This is why Russell's lap sits in such an uncomfortable place. The available report says the FIA reviewed the data and decided not to delete the lap. The stewards were satisfied that Russell had discernibly reduced speed in the relevant marshal sector. That means the official position was clear enough for the lap to stand. But official does not always mean settled, because the bigger emotional question remains. If Antonelli felt he had to give up the lap, why was Russell still able to take pole? Mercedes can explain the regulations. They can explain the difference between a single yellow and a double yellow. They can explain that Russell lifted. They can explain that he was already carrying a large advantage before the yellow zone and that he lost time after reacting. All of that may be true, but inside a championship fight, the emotional meaning is harder to control. Antonelli made the safer choice and lost the reward. Russell made the riskier choice and gained the biggest prize. And that is a lesson no driver forgets. This is where the rule itself becomes part of the drama. A single yellow flag does not automatically kill a lap. It demands caution. It demands a clear reduction of speed. It demands that the driver be ready to change direction if needed. A double yellow is different. It is more severe, and if a driver improves under those conditions, the lap can be deleted. So the entire controversy turns on a narrow but crucial detail. What was the flag status in the exact marshal sector Russell crossed? That sounds technical, but it decides everything. If it was a single yellow, Russell's defense has room to breathe. He only needed to show that he slowed enough. If it had been a double yellow, the conversation would have become much harsher because an improved lap would have faced a very different standard. And that is where fans became divided. Some looked at the official decision and said the data cleared him. Others looked at Verstappen's crashed car, Antonelli's abandoned lap, and Russell's pole time, and said this should never feel acceptable. That split is the real story. Formula One lives between what is legal and what feels right. Sometimes those two things match perfectly. Austria did not feel like one of those moments. Russell's own explanation created a fascinating contradiction. He said he was 5/10 up going into the final corner, then crossed the line 2.5 up. In other words, he claimed he lost time after reacting to the yellow, but still had enough advantage to take pole. That is exactly why Mercedes can defend him, and exactly why the controversy survives. He did not need to ignore the yellow flag to finish fastest. He only needed to lose less time than the margin he had already built. That is legal under the right conditions, but to many people it still feels like a loophole. And loopholes are dangerous in Formula One because teams do not ignore them. Drivers do not ignore them. Once the sport sees that a lap can survive in that situation, everyone studies how close Russell was to the line. That is the problem the FIA now faces. If the message from Austria is lift slightly and your lap can stand under a single yellow, then drivers will remember that. They will use it. They will aim for the minimum reaction that satisfies the rule while protecting the lap as much as possible. That is how racing drivers think. They are trained to optimize everything: braking, throttle, battery, tires, track position, even risk. But yellow flags are supposed to resist that mindset. They are supposed to be one of the few moments where the sport says, stop optimizing and prioritize safety. Austria blurred that line, and Russell is now the face of that blur. For Mercedes, that is uncomfortable because this was supposed to be a pure performance story. Russell had found pace at the right time. Ferrari had been beaten. Verstappen had made a costly mistake. Antonelli had missed the chance to take pole. Instead, the main question became whether Russell's lap should have survived at all. That matters for Russell personally. He is not just any driver taking pole. He is chasing a teammate who is leading the championship. He needs moments that shift perception inside Mercedes. He needs weekends where the team sees not just experience, but authority. Austria gave him that moment, but it gave it with an asterisk in the minds of many fans. And that is a dangerous trade because a clean pole says, I am the fastest. A controversial pole says, I am the fastest, but now we need to talk about how. That second version gives rivals oxygen. Ferrari can point to the flag debate. Red Bull can point to Verstappen's crash and the timing of the yellow. Antonelli's side of the garage can point to the fact that their driver gave up the lap when danger appeared. Every rival has a piece of the story.